I'm Jack Knave, and one day I hope to represent Scotland at the Olympics.
And I'm Charlie Darling from the nation of Great Britain.
And this is Versatile Views, the podcast where we tried to do a deep dive.
But the waters were just too shallow.
Peeps, I don't know how to do this.
We've decided to talk about an autobiography this week.
If you can even call it that. It was definitely auto.
Oh my gosh. Just straight in there. I was going to say something different.
Okay. Say it.
To set the scene, one of the inspirations behind doing this podcast was Jack's fanaticism of another one called Celebrity Memoir Book Club, now called Good Noticings. We've decided to do our own take on a celebrity memoir.
And boy, oh boy, did we know how to pick him.
It was important to both of us that we choose someone who was gay and British.
For sure.
So we went with Tom Daley.
It was slim pickings trying to find someone that was both our age, but also had a level of success that would require a memoir and was also British. You can find celebrity memoirs from the US, they're a dime a dozen.
Mm-hmm.
But specifically people in our age from our community, it's not that easy.
It really made me realise how few gay and queer people there were in the celebrity world.
So this is why we keep talking about representation, people, because you might think that we've made it, but we absolutely haven't.
Yeah, true. And this is why we're kind of forced to talk about Tom Daley. Who, when you bring him up to like any queer person, they will have a reaction to that.
That's true.
Everyone has a view on him.
And unfortunately, you don't really get much neutral ground. There's nothing really coming from the middle. And that's a shame, because I think that must be a really hard line to walk as an individual, knowing that wherever you go, you are going to polarize people.
You can relate to that.
Okay, well, but I didn't write this biography. So, you know I didn't write this biography because I would have had many more words in my vocabulary.
Before we get into it, shall we share our tops and bottoms of the week?
Yeah, sure. Am I going first?
No.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
going first.
Tell me.
Okay. Actually, I've had another great week.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah. It's been non-stop though. So picking just one top, I had many things in the list of like top moments.
But if you had to pick just one thing, tell me please.
I'll go with the fact I played in a concert yesterday with my gay wind orchestra and many of my friends came to support. So actually, I wasn't too excited about doing the concert itself. It was just one more thing in the list of things I've had to do before Christmas.
Yes.
So I wasn't too excited about it. But once I was there, playing the music and then chatting with my friends in the audience during the interval and afterwards, that was the highlight. Seeing the big smiley faces, everyone getting into the festive spirits was really lovely.
It was my favourite Christmas concert I think you've done. I don't know if it was because we were back in that church that we haven't been to in quite a while, if there was just something in the air. I was running on adrenaline the entire day. I really enjoyed it. I think you played beautifully. I think I really enjoyed the people I experienced it with, because we have a whole new friendship group these days.
You did mention you'd had a few double tequila sodas beforehand.
I'd had two.
Maybe that had a part to play.
Perhaps.
For my bottom, I kind of just mentioned it. I have had no reprieve this week. I've had no downtime. It's just been one thing after another.
It's tough stuff.
Ever since I came back from my trip, I really wanted just some downtime to sit on that sofa, playing that Switch 2 over there, and just chilling out. And I have not had chance because everyone's been blowing up my phone, trying to see me. And I'm like, oh, fine, I'll see you. I just haven't had a chance to rest and I'm exhausted. And Christmas hasn't even begun, baby.
Oh, okay, well, that kind of neatly segues into my bottom of the week, because same! I'm sick and tired of having a social life. That's not true. I am so privileged and fortunate to have the friends that I've made this year and the friends that I've made in prior years. I feel like everything's coming together so nicely in my personal life for the most part, but I am cream crackered. Work is very, very tough for me at the moment. It's extremely busy and I need a minute. I just got back from Malta. Speaking of which, the top of my week, I went to Malta with my mother, and if you are watching us, you can see we have a new little mascot. This is Mercury. He's the leader of the Archipels, a little Maltese.
Yeah, please explain what it is, because I have no idea.
Basically, there's a company in Malta called Mercury, and they own a big like district in St. Julian's, and they've made this shopping centre, and they also have this like Malta tourism experience.
Okay.
So in order to, I think, appeal to the children
And to the 33-year-old gay men.
I was just about to say they made these characters that are all super cute and super fun, but they represent like really specific parts of Malta.
Okay.
So Mercury is related to obviously the Greek god Hermes, but Mercury is the Roman name for it, and of course Malta has a very heavy Italian influence. And they also have a cactus that represents their special cactus there. They also have a torso of a woman with no head.
Oh.
But that sort of represents, I think, the goddess of fertility. They have like some of the oldest temples in the world. And in one of those temples is a statue of like the goddess of fertility.
Could you buy a plushie of this torso?
I actually don't think you could. I was really surprised because...
Doesn't sound very family friendly.
well, the eyes are its breasts.
No.
Yes.
Oh, Europe. Never change.
Don't do it. But I had a wonderful, wonderful time with my mother. Shout out to Mama Knave. She's the best. We had a delightful time. And when we launched the Patreon, there's going to be a couple of stories about the absolute shenanigans that ensued. Because me and my mother together, individually, we can't go anywhere without some serious shiz happening.
I was going to say, if you think Jack Knave is a lot to handle, imagine two of them.
Oh my goodness. Well, I will say this. Everyone knew that my mother and I were related, but they kept on asking me if I was American, even though my mother is very, very Scottish compared to me. But I look just like her. So I just kept wanting to say to them, you know I sound like her. You know she's my mother. Why would you think I'm American and she's Scottish?
Yeah, I think the Scottish accent just isn't so well known there. So when they hear something that's a bit unknown, they just maybe default to American.
And then there was beautiful, gorgeous seas, waters to dive in, which brings us to the topic of this week's episode.
Coming up for air, What I Learned from Sport, Fame and Fatherhood by Tom Daley.
Did he ever?
Did he ever stop talking?
Well, we should explain that actually you did listen to the audiobook, but I read the book.
Yes, so I had Tom Daley in my ear for a day.
I think I might have had the more pleasant experience.
I listened to him sped up to get through it a bit faster.
Well, we were also on a time crunch.
Yes, true. The book details many things that he's learned through diving, fame, and fatherhood.
But when did he write this book, Charlie?
I was going to ask you that question.
Oh!
One moment, please.
Beep, boop, boop.
Funnily enough, Coming Up for Air is also a book by George Orwell.
I saw that earlier today.
Perhaps we should have read that.
No.
Originally published in 2021.
But how old was he in 2021?
Oh my gosh, get the calculator out. Well, he's 31 now.
He was born in 1994.
Yeah.
So that must mean he was 28?
7.
Well, maths isn't my strong suit, but words dent. I'm going to leave that in because the irony is just too much.
Yeah, true.
But I do like to think of myself as a wordsmith. I love books. I've been reading my whole entire life. I also think some biographies have been very interesting to me, auto or not.
Mm-hmm.
What Tom chose to do was to structure this book in vignettes. There's 10 chapters, as it were, and each one has
A theme, I suppose.
a theme based on the word that he's chosen to call the chapters. Some of them were resilience,
Perseverance,
perspective,
courage,
optimism,
etc.
and it made for really tough reading because it was incredibly repetitive, but it also meant it was really hard to follow his life.
Yeah, because key moments of his life revolve around Olympic Games, Commonwealth Games, other competitions that he's been in over the years, and I can't keep track of which one's which at all.
Precisely. Because of the monotony of the sport, because of the similarity in each competition and what it means, and the fact he was competing against the same people, and he was referring to his coach. And sometimes that was the only way I knew which year we were in, when he was talking about who his coach was at that period of time.
Yeah.
So that was my number one gripe from the start.
Yeah.
As a result, I came to Charlie and I said, I just don't know how we're going to structure this conversation, but can you explain what we're going to do?
My suggestion was to base this conversation around the 3 themes he names in the title of the book: sport, fame, Fatherhood.
And we're both going to feed into where we identify with Tom, but also where we distinctly differ from him, because a lot of what he talks about is deeply unrelatable.
Yeah.
I think to the majority of the world.
Yes, definitely.
But it's also deeply boring in parts.
Well, as you know, to be good at something, you have to repeatedly do it over and over again.
Absolutely.
It takes hundreds, thousands of hours of dedication to become the best in the world at something. Imagine condensing that into a book. That's what he's tried to do. And of course, it is a slog.
Well, also, I guess we'll get into this toward the end, but I just don't think being 27 years old is enough to give you any sort of perspective on your life and the lessons you've learnt. And to me, this book really felt like I have a few things to say. I need to set the record straight, and I'm going to push that agenda. And unfortunately, that feels very inauthentic to me, because it isn't actually telling me who you are. It's telling me who you think you are. And those are not always the same thing.
Definitely. And a lot of these events happened when he was a teenager and in his early 20s. It takes such a long time for you to reflect on those events and, sort of sort out in your own mind. And as you say, 27 is just a bit too young. Some of these justifications didn't ring true to me. It led to me feeling he was being a bit disingenuous at times with some of the justifications.
I agree. It was very, this is why I did it. Please believe me. Please understand me. And unfortunately, in certain areas of his life that he's made these conscious decisions, it doesn't matter about whether or not we believe him or whether or not we're on his side. It's a choice he made for himself. It doesn't matter what the justifications are. The other thing that I wanted to say is that we actually met each other around the age of 27, no?
Yeah.
It's so hard for me to sit there and think, wow, I'm going to write a book about my life at the age of 27, because I had absolutely no perspective. Ironically enough, that's the name of one of the chapters. I don't think you did either. And it's only us sitting here now as 33-year-olds that we are even really able to process a lot of what happened to us in our mid-20s.
100%. And we've had the chance to explore that through, I don't know, a rich experience that we've had in our lives. I don't know if Tom Daley has had a lot of those experiences, because he's lived in this world that's very separate, as you said before, deeply unrelatable. The people he's interacting with are not like normal people.
They are not normal whatsoever.
Well, people in the sport industry and then famous people. It
just seems like he was at the pinnacle of diving, and so every single person he met was at the pinnacle of whatever they did as well. I mean, his husband is an Oscar winner.
Yeah.
However, let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Let's start with diving.
Let's.
He started diving from a young age and quickly really took to it. Drew the attention of talent scouts. He was doing it after school, every day, eventually training at the national level.
Yes.
He was being encouraged by his parents. He was entering competitions. He was winning some of those competitions and quickly becoming a bit of a rising star in the diving community.
Yes.
So a point around this I want to bring up is how incredibly supportive his parents were.
In maybe the best way that parents could possibly be.
He talked about how they would be at every competition and take him to every training, no questions asked, no complaints, but never be sticking their oar in, oh, you didn't do well that time, this is how you should be doing it. Because they themselves weren't athletes. They didn't really know the ins and outs of diving, right?
Toward the end of the book, he actually talks about his peers and how stressed out they were at competitions.
Yes.
And he never felt like that, which is a wonderful thing. I'm really, really pleased for him in that regard.
I sometimes wonder about what I maybe could have achieved had my parents treated me a bit differently as a child.
Oh, in what way?
I was never into sport, but when it came to music, for example, I showed some aptitude for that as a teenager. My parents would say they nurtured that talent, but I don't really feel like they did. But then on the other hand, they did drive me to many rehearsals and that kind of thing. So logistically, they helped. But when it came to kind of the encouragement, I don't know if I ever really had that.
Interesting.
So to hear about someone who had this encouragement in kind of every aspect, and then keep going up to like this level, it's really fascinating. It makes me wonder how things could have been different for me had I been encouraged in the same way.
I had a somewhat different experience when it came to dance, and actually you and I have already sort of discussed, because of course we've been keeping stum while we've been reading this book. No. But I relate deeply to a lot of what Tom talks about in this book, and probably all the parts that most people would find extremely unrelatable, actually. When it came to dance, I was very internally motivated though. I was taking myself to all my ballet classes. Nobody took me to ballet class. Dance is actually a very subjective thing. So my family was incredibly supportive. They were also very keen to wield their opinions on my peers. Because of course they could. Dance is subjective.
Okay.
You have nicer feet. You have a nicer presentation.
Right.
You smile so much better. You do this, you do that. And unfortunately, it fed into also what a lot of dance teachers make you do, which is to judge yourself off of other people.
Oh.
So I'm actually just very jealous of that experience that Tom got to go through, because his parents, like I said, were supportive in the best way possible.
Do you think when it comes to judging diving, it's a bit less subjective?
Yes, I do. In much the same way that in gymnastics, there is an element of, yes, I prefer this person's presentation. But if they do everything technically correct, then yes, they get the technical marks.
They get the highest score for that, yeah.
Exactly. Whereas in dance, you will often see that the most popular dancers aren't always the best technically. Usually they are. But then you end up falling in love with these dancers that just dance their heart out and have a particular way of moving or an expression on their face, or they might even just remind you of someone else that you like.
Yeah, one of the things that I struggled with this book early on was sort of starting to read it, because we had the idea to read it because of Tom Daley being a prominent gay man.
Exactly.
Reading the book, I was like, oh God, this is about sports. And I don't like sports. So reading a book about sport, I was like, I've never read anything like this in my life.
Yeah, it's tough.
And maybe it wasn't a great introduction as well because of how it's written. So it was a real slog for me to learn about diving. I just don't really care. And further to that, I can't relate to the experience of doing something in my teenage years ad infinitum, over and over again, working really hard in all my spare time to do something for the sake of competitions. To me, that is just really alien and unrelatable. So it's like I was reading a story about something I knew nothing about, had little interest for, couldn't relate to at all. At least you could relate partly.
And I can understand why you would think that way, especially if you've not been interested in any sports before, or you're not particularly interested in the athleticism of what a body needs to do. But for me, learning about the G-force and the way that you have to break into the water, and he kept on talking about spotting. That's also a technique in dance that we use in order to prevent ourselves getting dizzy when we're turning. And again, that's just something I'd never considered before, the impact that the water has on your body. And I didn't even know all of the other training that had to go into it. I didn't ever think to myself, oh, he's doing something that is gymnastic, which means he would be doing gymnastics.
Yeah.
That was fascinating the first time I heard it.
I agree. I was surprised by some of that context. I've never thought about it, clearly. And I was quite alarmed to hear how much he went through in terms of like his injuries. Repetitively doing something physical leading to injury, again, surely as a dancer, you can relate to that.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a few things such as really pushing his body to the physical limit in order to get the most out of his body. The best coaches in the world tend to have been extremely good, and they know what worked for them and they know what worked for their bodies. They're at the end of their careers. They know what got them there. They are trying to apply that to someone else's body. For example, Jane is a woman. Your body is physically different.
Jane is Tom Daley's coach.
Thank you for that clarification. So that is different. What she's doing with her body and how she manages her own emotions, that's different from what Tom does. Except she kept on trying to apply her own understanding of herself onto Tom.
Yeah.
That is often what happens in the dance world as well. Teachers have had an amazing career. They had their amazing bodies, and they cannot comprehend sometimes why your body can't do what theirs used to do. Or perhaps they don't understand why you would interpret the music in that way.
I think that's one of the things that maybe held him back when he was younger, because one of the realizations he has later in his career, and it's towards the end of the book, is that what headspace he's in going into a competition is the biggest indicator of how he will do in that competition.
And that's where we come to the mind over matter thing, which is why when he was extremely badly injured and was still competing, doing extremely difficult jumping dives, even though he was wearing moon boots to the pool.
Yeah, crazy.
I can really relate to that, because you're told it's mind over matter. If you can make your body do what it needs to do.
So when he was coming down with pneumonia, when he broke his hand, when he had these issues with his shins, he just jumped back onto the diving board and would continue. It took the intervention of actual doctors and sometimes hospital visits to be like, dude, stop. And to me, that is crazy, because it's like, okay, you're operating at this really high level in a sport. You should know your body better than anything. Like it's your tool for achieving the highest level in the sport. Why would you not listen to your body when it's telling you I need to rest or I'm broken? It seems so strange to me. There's some kind of mental thing going on there where he refused to accept his limitations.
But that's why he became one of the best divers in the world.
It's not very inspiring to me.
Unfortunately, it's probably extremely inspiring to young divers today that read his book because they can relate to it. And I understand where you're coming from when you say, why aren't you listening to your body? The thing is, it isn't just his body. It isn't just him listening to himself. He's listening to his coaches. He's listening to the realm that is Great Britain with all their hopes on him to achieve the highest highs in his sport. And he didn't talk about it much in this book, but in the world of dance, when you see someone injured, often you see it as a moral failing.
Right.
You think, wow, you're so lazy. No wonder you got injured and you just don't want to do the dance or you don't want to do that part. And part of that's true. That has happened. I have done that before. I think the reason why Tom was so unwilling to listen to his body is because he knew that's what would get him to the top. And if he didn't get to the top, then what use would his body have been?
Right.
Might as well break it.
The feeling I was left with after reading about his competitions and how he performed in them and how he reacted to the winning and losing was that his own self-worth was really tied to how he did in his competitions.
Yes.
And he described winning as having this like great adrenaline rush, and it lasted not long at all. His losses would be devastating to him.
Absolutely.
Which again is very understandable for someone in pro athletics. But as someone like myself, like I don't really get that.
I can tell you exactly why it meant so much to him, because it's something similar I experienced. I often say that I didn't have to worry about coming out to my family as gay. They didn't care at all. When I had to come out as not wanting to be a dancer anymore, that was one of the hardest conversations of my entire life to have with my mother specifically. It becomes your identity. I was a dancer and then I was Jack and all of the other things.
Right.
I think for Tom, what came through to me partly was that Tom was a diver and then he was Tom and then he was everything else. And when your identity is that wrapped up in what it is that you do, that is why the highest highs were so amazing to him, but immediately cut short because you had to go and do your next dive. Similar to dance, you can go on stage and dance the best you've ever danced in your life, but unless that's your last performance, you have to get back on stage and try and dance again and try and do it as good as that was. And then when you lose, of course it's devastating because you have been built up to be the best diver in the world. So when you're not the best diver in the world, what does that then mean for you? So I can understand why it would be relatable to you, but I think that's because your identity has never been so innately wrapped up in something like that.
I agree. It's a really interesting perspective. I think actually for me, maybe something when I was a teenager that I was wrapped up with was maybe my academic performance at school. When I got to university and it was a longer guaranteed, I definitely struggled with that because it was like, oh, I've always been the smart one and now I'm struggling to get good grades. And it is difficult to line up like who you are. But at least at university, you're already finding your way in other ways. Like you're becoming an adult, right?
That's true.
Whereas some of this stuff is happening when Tom is a teenager. So I actually understand your point and will say like, yeah, okay, fair enough.
We're going to sound so repetitive and we're going to keep harping on it, but this book just kept on reiterating what a dive was, why it was so hard, how you had to spot the water, how you had to make sure the G-force was X, Y, Z. Every single chapter involved the same beats. And sometimes that meant we actually didn't know what it was he was trying to say.
Yeah, you kind of just fade out a little bit. You're like, oh my God, not again.
It made it hard to get on his side. I know exactly what you mean.
This point you're making around being tied up with the sport is really interesting to me. I hadn't considered it. My interpretation was that because he has so much media scrutiny on him from a young age, that was one of the things that led to him being so over justifying in all his things. We'll talk about his fame and the media scrutiny later. I also found that kind of tiresome as well.
What?
Him just bringing up the media scrutiny.
Oh, yes. Well, we'll get into it. However, let's talk about his motivation and drive for being an athlete. I think one of the most interesting parts of the book that was very informative, and unfortunately it came toward the end of the book, even though he was talking about himself as a child, he was picked by this national lottery funded person to go to these performance camps, trying to see, are you the most flexible? Can you pull yourself into this? Can you execute that? And Tom didn't.
Yeah.
All he had was a passion and an aptitude, and according to the person that funded him, a really good spatial awareness, proprioception, like none of the other athletes had.
Yeah, that part was quite inspiring in a sense, because something he says a few times is like, oh, if you dream it, you can do it, which I think is a bit of a hackneyed expression. People love to throw it out there, like RuPaul does all the time. I am skeptical of this claim that like we can do anything we put our minds to.
Well, the thing is, he has done it, right? And he put his mind to it. So of course he thinks that's true.
But what about all the other people who were diving next to him who didn't get gold?
Exactly. And this is why I say that people often wrap these things up as a moral failing. You didn't win the gold because you weren't deserving to. You didn't try as hard as I tried. But often that isn't the case.
Should we just mention quickly his attitude to his Chinese competitors at this point?
I said to Charlie that I find it somewhat xenophobic. Not consciously, I do think it was subconscious. I just don't think it's fair to say, oh, but in China, they get trained like this and they get to do that. Tom, you were just picked, like I just said, by a national lottery funded person to bring out the best potential of you. You got a coach, you got all these sponsors, you got all of this support from your family. That isn't fair to say that in China they're better because this happens.
I did feel like he kind of minimized their achievements. He talks about the way they're trained in China and he describes them as being robotic, almost like he doubts that they have the passion for it like he does.
Again, that sort of is a very coded way of saying like Chinese people, they're robots. That's why they're smarter than people in the UK because of their education system. That's why they're better athletes than people in X, Y, and Z. And I just think, no, they're people too, actually.
Yeah, and they all go through the same struggles that you had, Tom. Like your Chinese competitors, you relate to them way more than any average person in the UK.
Oh, for sure. We're actually just going to move on. I can't talk about this with any fake passion. I'm sorry, peeps.
And as someone who went into the book not liking sport, I don't like it anymore now. Definitely the most boring part of the book for me. Unfortunately, it was the bulk of the book because that's all he's done. Well, not all he's done, but a majority of his life has been diving. And then there's some other stuff around fame and fatherhood.
I think we should speak about fame. Let's do it.
So Tom Daley's quite famous.
Wouldn't you believe it?
And I'm unsure as to why exactly. Not that he doesn't deserve it, but just like, why was he the one to be famous from the diving team and none of the others?
I think that's an incredibly good point. And you actually asked me earlier. You asked me to maybe hypothesize in the episode just to have a think, because I think you have a theory. So let me throw this question right back at you, Charlie. Why is he the most famous?
I think it's a combination of a number of factors.
Oh, which ones?
Okay, so I'll say it. He's very handsome.
He is very handsome.
So that's definitely one aspect. People were intrigued by him and his looks, even before he was 18, which is messed up. And that is a shame. Like, it really shouldn't be that way. I do think the story, like, he had a bit of a sob story. And that's a horrible way to put it because his father passing away is tragic. And it was a really horrible experience for him. So he had this story going in. And I think, a teenager who loses his father, a very supportive father who was a great guy all around. People felt for him as well. So not only was this handsome guy doing a good job athletically and representing the country and winning awards at a level that people hadn't done before, had this tragic backstory. And then there was all the rumors around his personal life. And then he obviously made some decisions that kind of led into that. He could have just got with someone not famous, but he ends up dating someone who was famous already.
I also want to say he was one of the youngest. He was competing at a very young age with people much older than him.
True.
So that was also part of his story. He was a bit of a prodigy, I guess, in the world of diving.
So for all those reasons, it kind of makes sense why he got a lot of attention. The way he talks about the fame he has, I found quite strange.
In what way?
He really glosses over the positives of it.
Okay.
And really harps on the negatives of it.
Right, yeah, no, that is true.
We've had this conversation before where we talked about famous people. Do they owe us anything? Like, they're in the public eye.
Yes.
And you have the belief that, it's their choice to be famous. Maybe it's rubbing off on me because I'm starting to agree with that point.
Okay, you are starting to understand what I mean. Fame is a very different beast. It's cultivated differently. You can step away from that. You do not need to be hosting Splash. You do not need to be doing X, Y, and Z. Of course, maybe he was young when his father died. He wanted to support his mother and his brothers. Again, we don't hear much about his brothers, do we? That's one thing. I can understand why he took that opportunity. However, what you do afterward is a different story. And I do feel like he has cultivated his fame.
Yes.
And so when you do that, being famous is your job.
Yes.
So I don't want to hear about the bad parts of it because this is a career that you chose.
Yeah. At the risk of sounding too uncharitable, he says the paparazzi hounded them even at his father's funeral.
I mean, that is absolutely abhorrent.
Yeah, that was hard to read. I was like, oh my God, the paparazzi in this country need to be stopped.
I do think the British paparazzi are some of the worst, but I do think that would happen wherever you are. I also think that the nation regarded him as a bit of a treasure. So I know that these journalists are trying to get their soundbite when they were asking him what he thought about his father passing away. But in one regard, I do think that actually Britain was in mourning for Tom. They wanted the best for him and they hated that someone so young had lost their father. I really hate that for him. I think it's terrible.
Yeah. Tom talks a bit about the grief of losing him, but not a lot. And actually, I can relate to that because I don't talk about losing my father very much either.
No, you don't. And that was one of the most moving parts of the book for me.
I hesitated there, maybe because I don't agree it was very moving, which is a really strange reaction because I also lost my father when I was younger. Not when I was 16. I was 25 when my dad passed away. So I was expecting to maybe relate to Tom on a few different levels going through this book. His dad sounded amazing, I will say.
Yeah, I agree.
He sounded like a real light, real supportive. You know, he was very lucky to have had a father like that.
He sounded like a really good dad. You're right.
100%. So maybe this is something for me to reflect on. There's a part of the book where Tom talks about how he struggled with one particular dive for a long time. He had a mental block. He could not perform the twister. And eventually it leads to him going to a psychotherapist. And a psychotherapist floats the idea of, you have PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom is so surprised by hearing this. And when I was reading it, I don't know about you, I was reading that being like, of course you have PTSD. You lost your dad as a teenager to brain cancer, which is bloody awful. And you kind of just like shrug it off a bit. Like, that sounds so unkind. I mean, he was very strong, I think, to sort of like literally the next day after the funeral go to a competition and win a silver medal.
Yeah.
Astonishing, and it's incredible.
Left the memorial early.
But clearly that's a sign of him repressing what was going on. I guess he had to focus on his diving.
I think that's where, tying it back to his diving again, that is why he wouldn't listen to his body. He doesn't even listen to his own thoughts half the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting sometimes hearing him talk about the paparazzi in the press, because there were times I think they were trying to be charitable, and there are definitely times when they were not.
So another thing about his fame that I kind of didn't mention, the speculation around his romantic life as he was becoming an adult, and then, as it turned out, him being gay. So the way he chose to come out with his video posted on YouTube, one, it garners a lot of attention.
Yes.
And two, I have to say, I have big respect for him doing that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think how he handled his coming out and how he stands up for sort of LGBT rights and representation is great. I can't really fault it.
Well, he is married to an activist.
Yeah, true. He's had a good teacher.
He has indeed.
But one thing about his coming out that I'm a bit like, is that he met his partner, Lance, before he came out, when he was 18.
Yes.
And to me, that's crazy.
Yes.
This is where we're like really biting back some words.
We are holding back because I don't think it's fair for us to judge the relationship. I am just always skeptical of age gaps.
Let me tell you this. When I was 19, I came out. And early on in my experience going to gay bars and so on, I met a guy who was a bit older.
I didn't know this.
This guy was in his late 20s.
Okay.
So there was about a 10-year age gap. And we went on a few dates together. And for me, it was like one of my first experiences dating in London. And it felt great to be taken around to nice bars by an older, wealthy guy. I mean, he was working in the city or something. He was put together. He wore a suit to work in a finance company. And he took me on dates to bars. And as a 19-year-old, I was like blown away by that.
Okay.
I remember my friends at the time being like, be careful. And it fizzled out. There's no big drama. He didn't do anything horrible to me at all. But I remember getting to that age, late 20s, 28, 29, and being like, oh, wow, I'm now the age that guy was when I dated him. 19-year-olds I saw around, absolutely not. There is nothing attractive about them.
I firmly relate to your opinion. If they're younger than me, I'm repulsed.
I am repelled. So I just understand why people were skeptical and cautious on his behalf. He even mentions in the book that a lot of people had things to say about this age gap and stuff. And like, I actually don't want to be a person that like joins that ruckus.
No, I want to make the point that they're still together. They're still happy.
Yeah.
They have 2 children. So they were right. It worked out. I'm glad. I'm happy for them.
Well, we don't really know much about the relationship.
That's true.
So we're not going to speculate. So let's move on.
Well, one thing that we don't need to speculate about is the fact that Tom has a very interesting opinion about what the world of sport thinks about his relationship with Lance. In fact, I don't think it's much of an opinion. I think it's a fact.
He describes the sporting world as being quite backwards, like quite old-fashioned. And of course, there are many international competitions that he takes part in, where homosexuality is still illegal.
Mm-hmm.
He said how it's important for him to represent his sexuality when he can, when he's on the podium. And I really commend him for that.
I do too, but I think the biggest issue that he takes with the world of sport is the fact that Lance is just treated like a second-class citizen most of the time.
Yeah.
And I absolutely hate that for them.
Yeah.
I don't think they need anything to be made tougher for them. And especially when they are two very prominent activists,
Mm-hmm.
they are going to notice these things. It's hard. It's tough stuff. It made for quite unpleasant reading, actually.
Yeah, they experienced some microaggressions, basically like when Lance has gone to support Tom at a competition.
With their son.
With their son being shooed out of the family area because they're like, whatever, someone took issue with that. So I guess in this sense, they are trailblazers. We mentioned how he glosses over the positives of fame
Mm-hmm.
and harps on about the negatives.
Yeah.
I think being in the public eye from a young age and reaching these like very lofty heights, like marrying an Oscar winner and being a gold medal winner at the Olympics, it's left him being a bit out of touch. There were moments of this book where I was like, dude, what are you talking about?
Can you give me an example?
So as mentioned, I listened to the audiobook, right? So I had Tom Daley telling the story.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, he talks about how he was doing a cover photo shoot for Vogue
I think it was Vogue Italia.
with Kate Moss, who is one of the world's most famous supermodels.
And a renowned photographer, and I can't remember who it is, unfortunately.
Yeah, sorry to this man. And the way he just like rattles it off quite casually just left me thinking like, dude, that experience is like a once in a lifetime thing. It's so extraordinary. Are you not from like a normal household in Plymouth? Like, I just feel like he's been in this world with like famous people, like people at the top of their games for so long. He's like lost all perspective, and it's like reading that, maybe I'm supposed to be all, wow, that's amazing. It was the way he so casually talked about it that made me find him so unrelatable. Because if I had an experience like that, I would be so enthusiastic about it.
Mm-hmm.
In the audiobook, it was just another line.
I do know that when you're reading an audiobook, you're supposed to be reading it incredibly neutrally throughout. They make you retake if you sound too enthusiastic about anything.
Fair.
So that might have been why that impacted you in that way. Because when I was reading it, it came across to me in the writing that he thought, wow, this is something important that I talk about. Again, I did say to you, the fame makes him not a normal person and makes him unrelatable to us.
Yeah.
There was actually too much that I didn't relate to.
Mm.
And one of those things that I don't relate to is fatherhood.
We've got two gay men in the room talking about babies.
And I don't wanna.
No, I was so bored.
I did want to have a child. I wanted to have many children when I was in my early 20s. When I got to my late 20s and I started having, you know, some crazy things went on. All of a sudden I thought to myself, absolutely not. I don't even want to have a plant.
Interesting. I hadn't realized that you had changed your mind based on certain events.
Really?
Yes.
It wasn't certain events. It was my life. As I went through my life and experienced more, I just thought to myself, I don't need to bring a child into this world. I don't want to bring a child into this world. I don't want to pay to have a child brought into this world. I don't want to pay for the child in this world. I want to be me, free.
I was going to say, what, like the series of calamities that make up your life?
Oh my goodness. Stop.
Careering from one to the next.
No.
Like a pinball.
Not anymore. Pinball wizard. There has to be a twist.
Well, we have to mention how Tom says before he was in any relationship, he collected children's clothes.
It was actually kind of cute to me.
I was mortified. You couldn't torture me to get that out of me.
I did think to myself, what the hell? Like, he was smuggling baby clothes out of countries like he was smuggling drugs. It was crazy. And then he had a special drawer allocated for them. Imagine being his mum and like walking into his room and opening up. Tom, you're a bit alpha dolls.
I've just never met a single gay man who was like that.
No, you're right. I haven't met any gay men like that. No.
But his family is very family oriented. So he grew up around it.
He's got two younger brothers as well, and I think he kind of co-parented them, from what it sounds like.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, like he was 16 when his father passed away. His brothers are younger than him. So maybe as part of it there, he loved his dad to bits, so he wanted to have his own children to build his family. He did mention that at one point.
Yes.
That's really beautiful. I wondered if it was just because of the age gap in the relationship. Like Lance is just like, let's go because I'm getting old and I want to have children. It didn't come across that way at all, actually. Like clearly Tom was on board very early.
It seems like Tom was the one trying to push things forward.
They had their first meeting about surrogacy when Tom was 21.
Oh my goodness.
bonkers to me.
I don't like that. But I also don't like surrogacy.
Why not?
Okay, it's a tricky one. Tom and Lance go to great lengths in this book, and I've heard that they actually have done a podcast discussing surrogacy. There's just been a couple of things that have happened in recent years that make me very deeply uncomfortable with the concept, because it isn't actually as well regulated as it should be. Where the difficulty usually actually comes from is, are they allowed to be paid? Often they're not allowed to be compensated for it. And how does the child become yours legally once it's given birth? Even when they have the child inside of them, how is that child looked after and cared for? Who gets to make the medical decisions for the fetus?
Right.
It's just really, really murky.
It's a minefield.
I just do not like someone telling me why it's fine that they did it the way that they did it, because there's 101 other ways that it's just not okay.
Okay.
The other thing that I find tricky about surrogacy, and it's again what I was saying to earlier about me making a choice not to bring children into this world. The world is a very crazy, scary place at the moment. I find it vain to biologically want to have a child brought into this world just so that they're linked to you. I do just think having a child is an inherently selfish thing to do. It isn't an altruistic thing, because that child did not ask to be brought into the world. Can I read two very interesting statements from the book, because they seem at odds with one another?
Please do.
Lance knew people who had children via surrogacy in California. We wanted a child who was biologically connected to us, a baby who had links to my dad, Lance's mum, and those before them. Genes that go backwards but can arch forwards into the future. This was important to us.
That's a nice sentiment.
The eggs were fertilised, half using my sperm and half using Lance's, and then 2 embryos were implanted without knowing whose was whose.
Mm-hmm.
We did not want to know, and it did not matter who would be genetically related. The child would be ours.
Right.
Can you maybe understand why I think that is two very conflicting statements? Especially if the child is only directly related to one of them. It can't be related to his dad and his mum.
Yeah, true.
So what are you talking
truth?
about?
Yeah.
I just can't get on board with it. But it's also, you don't need to get me on board with it.
No.
You did it. You've had your child, and you are a very, very loving and good father by all accounts from what I've seen.
Yeah.
It's almost sickening.
True.
You seem skeptical of surrogacy too. Why would that be?
So your second reason I completely agree with. I am sorry to say it to anyone who's maybe listening who is a fan of surrogacy or has maybe done surrogacy. I do know some people who have. To me, I'm just baffled by it, because we know there's plenty of kids in the foster system who need to be adopted, looking for families. And it's like, okay, 2 gay men or 2 women can be incredible parents.
Absolutely.
Like, come on, of course I don't doubt that.
Because they're choosing to have a child. And Tom says this in the book.
Yes.
You cannot, as a same-sex couple, have a baby by accident.
I think having 2 queer parents would create an incredible environment to raise children in.
Absolutely.
So my instinct is to go down like the adoption route. Not that I ever want to have children of my own, but that's what I think people should be doing first, maybe. And any deviation from that, as you say, it's vain. It's vanity.
Well, the other thing that really rubbed me up the wrong way was that he spoke about the legal fees and he spoke about the arduous process. And I just thought to myself, you chose that! You knew that was the case. You knew that was what was going to happen. And yes, it's stressful, and yes, it's a lot of money. But by golly, did you go down that route?
I can't imagine how it could be easier anyway. Like, it is a legal minefield. So of course it's going to be expensive. Yeah, it should be, and it has to be. You can't just have people giving away babies willy-nilly.
You absolutely cannot.
No, we are not advocating for that.
No.
Maybe I end up with one. And I'll be like, what the hell?
No, I'm not having a baby. I'm not having a baby.
There were a few things around the surrogacy process that I was kind of eye-rolling hard. So they said about how they had an instant connection with the surrogates and that they wanted a surrogate to be part of Robbie's life and this kind of stuff. And I was just like... They talked about having a baby moon, which is the little holiday before the baby comes. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is just really hard to listen to. It was a struggle. I don't want to be a hater. Like, I'm happy for them. But the language around it was just excruciating.
I don't think you're a hater. I'm also happy for them. I'm genuinely over the moon for them. Again, this is maybe what you were trying to allude to earlier. They are so deeply out of touch.
He talks about how his mother flying to California to meet the baby, and the flights were all cancelled except for the one that she was on. It was another part of our journey that was written in the stars. I'm trying not to throw up here. He was the most perfect baby on the planet. I am not a father, and as we have made quite clear, I will never be. Listening to this part of the book, it reminded me of a Family Guy sketch.
What one?
Well, I actually prepared it so I can show you.
Oh my goodness, okay.
We interrupt this program to bring you grim news out of LaGuardia Airport, where a 767 has been forced to make a crash landing. Oh, man, I tell you, now that I'm a parent, I can't even watch stories like that. I just think, oh, my God, what if Dylan were on that plane? What? Oh, my God. Oh, I just don't know what I would do. I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, I understand. That'd be tough.
Oh, no. No, Quagmire. No, you do not understand. Until you have a child, you do not understand, okay?
Jesus.
That was all I could think of when listening to that part of the book.
And this is why I say I don't want to hear about the selfless acts of people that have children. You actually chose to have a child. You chose it for yourself. It's a selfish thing that you did. So don't come around and tell me that you're a better person and that you're morally more righteous than I am because you have a child and this is how you think about things. I don't care. I don't have a child and this is how I think about things with more time and a better social life and nicer hair.
That's crazy.
It's also true.
Yeah, no, it is.
I actually want to wrap up this conversation with talking about the things that I do find deeply charming and likable about Tom.
Okay.
I think that he is clearly someone that has always wanted to have a family. And again, we are glad for him and Lance that they have their beautiful children.
Of course.
Well, maybe they're not beautiful. I don't know. But who cares? I don't want to see babies or children. I don't want to see children. I don't want to see them. But, you know, he planned the whole wedding, him talking about trying to propose, Lance trying to propose back, the knitting, the crocheting. It was all really cute, to be perfectly honest with you. If he's happy in his world at the moment, good for him. It doesn't matter if I find him annoying. And actually, can I just say, I don't know if I ever find him annoying. I think I find the furore annoying.
Yes, yeah, that is totally accurate.
And I was like, really? We're going to talk about Tom Daley again? Why?
Well, we decided to do it.
No. I mean, like back when he was like in the zeitgeist every 5 seconds.
Yeah.
What did you think about the fact that he wanted to have red, white and blue at his wedding?
I was worried you'd bring this up.
Why?
Because there's no way I can answer that question being kind. It's like the worst idea I ever heard in my life. I know. And again, who else would do it? It's baffling. It just blows my mind.
Made me feel sick. I just thought to myself, Tom, have a fudging original idea.
It just makes me wonder, like, why is Lance going along with all of this? Like, Lance is a 40-something-year-old man. He's had a life, you know. Why is he just going with every whim of his 23-year-old boyfriend?
I have speculation on that.
Oh.
I know we said we weren't going to speculate.
Oh my goodness.
I think they're a really, really good match because Lance was absolutely addicted to his work. He was a total workaholic. And so he couldn't be with someone that wasn't. Tom was also a workaholic. They couldn't spend all of their time together, even if they wanted to, because Tom always had to be training. And when he was training, he was at the pool for 1 billion hours a day.
Actually, that reminds me of a quote from the book, because at one point he takes 6 weeks off from training and he says directly afterwards, "It meant I could spend more time with my husband and son." Yes. How do you have a husband and son if you have no time to get them? I don't know, it just seemed really strange to me. Like, how have you managed to like get a husband and son and be like, oh, I'll just take some time off from diving so I actually spend some time with them.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm out here pounding those streets, going to those bars. I got loads of time and not a single husband. Like, what is going on? It's just like, it feels like a lot of things kind of came quite easily to him, which is maybe, if you heard me say that, he'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But the first person you date and marrying them and then having a baby with them being a great match, like, I guess I'm happy for you, but it's just like, it just doesn't happen. It's like a fairy tale. I guess his life is a bit like a fairy tale. And that can be a bit like, ugh, to read, to hear, because again, it's just not relatable.
It's not relatable.
We're more relatable, surely.
We are more relatable. I mean, there's things that I didn't get to dive into, similar to you. Maybe we'll do a couple of vignettes of our own to cover those off, particularly eating disorders, having pneumonia. I've had both of those.
Sounds like a cheery conversation.
Oh, you're going to have a real laugh about that. But
I think you're right. It may be time to draw to a close.
Mm-hmm.
Lest this go on for 8 hours and we start repeating ourselves.
Well, okay, I will say this is my conclusion. It didn't make me like Tom more. It certainly made me dislike him less.
That's a wild thing to say.
Well, unfortunately, when we have these celebrities and what the media does is it just flattens people down to very specific things.
Yeah.
I now see him as much more of a well-rounded individual.
Same.
And more flawed than I was originally led to believe. And with a sense of introspection that was definitely not fully explored, but now that I know that it exists, I have warmed up to him slightly. I'm still just, I guess, I've always been indifferent to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, his life doesn't really impact on ours at all, even though I think they live up the road from here.
And I have friends of friends.
Oh yeah, we know people who've met him. As we mentioned, he was a bit too young to write this book. Clearly he was pressured by some publisher, like got a publishing deal, which makes total sense. Like, I'm sure it sold well. I'm sure people were reading it all up and down the country.
It's really highly ranked, by the way.
Yeah.
It's a lot of 5-star reviews on Goodreads.
And there was just like a modicum of growth shown in some of his introspection, like at the very end of the book, I thought. Just a tiny bit.
It was crazy. The very end of the book that was talking about him now actually showed far more growth and introspection than him looking at the rest of his life.
Yeah, 100%. Props to him for that.
Props to you, mama.
Perfect. I agree on all the points you made. I have a renewed respect for him when it comes to his sort of LGBT activism.
Yeah, it's a renewed respect. I think I've always respected him, though. I just want to put that out there, and I am proud of him.
It's like we said, there are very few prominent queer people in the media, in sport and everything. So it really can't be understated, like the impact he may have had on young children who are getting into the sporting world. And hopefully there are more athletes who will come out soon and add to that number. We really can't diminish like what he's done, his impact.
Absolutely not.
Even if he's just a bit irritating. And that's fine. Like, he's got a great life. And he's achieved some incredible things and will continue to have a great life and do incredible things. He's got a new TV show coming out soon. Like, good for him.
Oh, yeah, good for him. And he has since had another child since the book.
Yeah.
And he's also since competed in another Olympics. So
yeah, although he has now retired.
Oh, he has officially?
Yeah.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah.
I think his body needs it.
I hadn't realised how diving was, the peak of it was in your early 20s. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was happening.
Hey, it's crazy. But podcasting,
oh,
they really peak in their 30s.
I think that's true, actually.
I agree, actually. So what did you think of those views?
What did you make of those takes?
Let us know down below.
New episodes of Versatile Views drop every Wednesday.
And on Fridays, you can watch us over on YouTube. And stay tuned, baby, because something big's coming for Sundays in the new year.
We've got 2 episodes left of our first season, so make sure you catch them before we have a wee break.
Yeah, a wee break. It's going to be a Christmas spectacular and a New Year retrospective, baby.
You've got a lot of things you should be thinking about.
Yeah, it's been a real year of realising stuff.
Learning from your mistakes.
Learning from yours. Because there's been a few.
Well, we're going to get into it.
Can't wait.
Can't wait to sling some mud your way. But until then,
have a good one.
But just one.
Liza Minnelli.
I don't know what you're going to do with it.